Everything changed the day Earth was removed from the Galactic Council. It was supposed to be humanity's greatest achievement, joining the group that guided decisions for the entire galaxy. It took years of effort, careful diplomacy, and endless negotiations just to earn a seat at the table. Humans had felt proud, hopeful, and excited. For once, they believed the galaxy respected them. But that feeling did not last. That the trouble began when Earth questioned a resource agreement that several powerful alien worlds supported. It was not a threat, not a demand, not even a political challenge. It was just a simple question about fairness. Yet that question made the other members suspicious. They claimed humans were becoming too bold. When a disagreement followed, the Council used it as an excuse to vote Earth out. The expulsion happened unbelievably fast. One morning, Earth held a secure position in the Council. By evening, the membership was revoked. Ambassadors were ordered to leave. Human ships were told to return home, and the Council chambers were sealed to anyone from Earth. Humans were not given time to defend themselves. No one listened to their explanations. It was as if the galaxy had decided that humans didn't belong and had been waiting for a reason to push them out. News of the banishment spread instantly. Some galaxies mocked Earth. Some called humanity unstable, unpredictable, or unprepared. Many believed humans would collapse without Council support. Even the trade routes that had once been open began closing. Earth was now alone. For a few days, the world sat in shock. People everywhere talked about it endlessly, in homes, in offices, on broadcasts in streets. No one could understand how everything had changed overnight. Humanity had tried to do things the right way, but the Council did not want to hear from them. However, something unusual happened next. Instead of falling apart, humans came together. The anger that people felt did not lead to chaos. It led to a new kind of unity. Old disagreements between nations suddenly seemed small. After years of tension and competition, countries finally agreed on something. They would not be pushed aside. They would not remain silent. They would not fade away in a corner of the galaxy. When the global leaders gathered, there was no shouting or confusion as many expected. There was only determination. They all knew that the galaxy had underestimated them for too long. Humans were always judged by their past, by their mistakes, by their conflicts. But the world had changed. People had learned, adapted, grown, and worked hard to create a peaceful future. Yet none of that mattered to the Council. So Earth made a decision. If the galaxy did not want humans included, then humanity would build something of its own, something stronger, something fairer, something designed not by fear, but by unity. The first step was shutting their doors. Earth restricted access to its space borders. Anyone trying to enter without permission was turned away. The Sol system slowly went quiet from the outside. Observers from other civilizations found that sensors could barely detect anything inside the region. The usual flow of signals from Earth began fading. Even the Moon and Mars became silent zones with limited communication. Many alien worlds thought this silence meant Earth was breaking apart. Some assumed humanity was struggling without their help. Others believed the humans were planning something but weren't worried, thinking humans lacked the ability to do anything major. Inside the Sol system, however, an enormous shift was happening. Every factory, research center, and space program was accelerated. The leaders formed a single body to guide all decisions, the Terran Assembly. Under this new unity, there was no competition for resources, no political games, no divided interests. Every human, whether on Earth, the Moon, or Mars, worked toward the same purpose, rebuilding their future. The silence from Earth was not weakness. It was focus. It was planning. It was preparation. People on Earth adapted quickly. Engineers redesigned entire industries. Scientists received unlimited support. No one told them to slow down because of costs or politics. For the first time, humanity's brightest minds could work freely with one goal: create a new destiny for their species. Young people joined space academies in record numbers. Families proudly watched as their children trained to be pilots, technicians, and explorers. On the moon, factories that had once produced small equipment now built massive ship components. Mars became the center for research on new propulsion systems. The asteroid belt became the main source of raw materials. Every piece of metal, every block of stone, and every drop of fuel was used purposefully. Not a single resource was wasted. Instead of hiding from the galaxy, humans were preparing to meet it again, but this time on their own terms. As the years passed, strange energy signatures began appearing near the solar borders. Distant sensors detected faint pulses, but could not identify them. The Council sent exploratory drones, but none returned with useful data. A few never returned at all. Something powerful was blocking their signals. Yet Earth remained silent. Inside, the progress continued. Entire shipyards were built in orbit around Earth. They stretched for kilometers, glowing softly against the darkness of space. New construction stations were set up near Mars and the asteroid belt. Human engineers created designs that no one had ever seen, using ideas that had once seemed impossible. The biggest breakthrough came when researchers discovered a new method of generating energy using artificial fields. It didn't rely on traditional fuel, didn't require council-approved technology, and didn't produce dangerous waste. It was clean, stable, and powerful. Humans had transformed their scientific limitations into advantages. Every project, big or small, moved with incredible speed. There were no delays caused by politics, no waiting for funding, no arguing about international boundaries. It was humanity working as one, and the results were extraordinary. The transformation was not only physical, people changed too. They became more patient, more disciplined, more united. Even though they were angry at the Council, they didn't allow that anger to guide them into destruction. Instead, they used it as motivation. Slowly but surely, Earth shaped itself into something new. Not a weakened world that begged for acceptance, but a powerful, independent civilization ready to build its own path. Other species in the galaxy heard rumors. Some said Earth was creating a weapon. Others claimed humans were building a massive fleet. A few believed Earth had given up on the galaxy and would remain isolated forever. But no one truly understood what was happening. The galaxy had spent centuries studying humanity, yet it did not understand the one thing that humans were known for: their ability to rise when pushed down. Exile did not break humans. It brought them together. Every passing year, Earth grew more confident. Every day, new systems came online. Every month, new structures appeared above the planet and across the solar system. Humans who once felt hurt by the Council now felt proud of what they were building. They no longer cared about proving themselves to others. They only cared about shaping a future where they would never be mistreated again. By the 20th year. After expulsion, the silence surrounding Earth was no longer a sign of isolation. It was a sign of preparation. The galaxy felt uneasy, unsure of what humanity had become. Many believed Earth had built a defensive shield. Some thought humans were developing a way to travel faster than anything seen before. No one knew the truth. But inside the Sol system, the truth was simple. Humanity was ready, not for war, not for revenge, but for independence. They had constructed industries, fleets, new technologies, and a unified government. They had turned exile into strength. They had turned silence into strategy. And now, after 2 decades of transformation, Earth was about to step back into the galaxy, not as a confused newcomer, not as a dismissed member of the Council, but As a rising civilization with a future it had built from the ground up, the galaxy had banned Earth, but all it had done was create something far more powerful than anyone expected. A united humanity with the courage to build not just a fleet, but an entire empire of its own. For years after the Council had cast Earth out, the galaxy believed humanity had been silenced. Trade routes that once passed near the Sol system stopped receiving signals. The bright trails of human spacecraft became memories, stories told in whispers at council halls and starports. Most civilizations assumed that without support, without guidance from older and more advanced races, humanity had collapsed. Planets that once looked to Earth for new ideas and innovations now turned their eyes elsewhere. Earth, they thought, had faded into irrelevance, but the truth was very different. Inside the solar system, behind layers of powerful energy shields and hidden orbital stations, humanity was working harder than ever. The world that had once been divided by nations and political disagreements had found a new purpose. There was no longer room for petty arguments about borders or resources. Every city, every factory, and every research station focused on a single mission: to survive, to grow, and to ensure that humanity would never be dismissed again. The first step was unification. Governments of every kind, from remnants of old countries to newly formed coalitions, set aside their differences. They formed what would be called the Terran Assembly, a central governing body that had authority over Earth and all its colonies in the solar system. People who had once fought each other in endless wars now worked together in factories, mines, and laboratories. The moon became a hub for industrial production, while Mars was transformed into an agricultural and research colony. The asteroid belt became a network of resource stations, providing metals and minerals that Earth had never been able to access before. It was not easy. There were arguments, of course. Some people still remembered the divisions of the past, the rivalries. That had cost millions of lives. Others feared that concentrating so much power in one council could lead to tyranny. But over time, the need for survival and progress overcame these fears. People began to see themselves not just as citizens of one country or region, but as part of something larger, humanity itself. There was a quiet, almost unspoken understanding that the galaxy had underestimated them. That misunderstanding would soon prove to be their greatest advantage. As the decades passed, Earth underwent a transformation unlike any the galaxy had seen. Cities expanded upward and downward, using space around them efficiently. Orbital factories circled the planet, processing raw materials sent from the moon and the asteroids. Undersea research centers explored oceans for resources and scientific knowledge. People worked tirelessly, driven not by orders from distant rulers, but by a shared vision: to rebuild a civilization that no one could ignore. Technological advancement became the lifeblood of this hidden Earth. Scientists developed engines that allowed ships to travel faster and more efficiently. Engineers built drones capable of repairing space stations and mining asteroids automatically. Energy grids were upgraded to handle the immense power required for this massive industrial effort. Every innovation built upon another, creating a chain reaction of progress. The galaxy thought Earth had been silenced, but in reality, it was quietly becoming something far stronger. The people of Earth also focused on training the next generation. Young minds were educated not only in science, technology, and engineering, but also in diplomacy, strategy, and leadership. They were taught to think independently and to act decisively, to understand the value of teamwork and the cost of failure. Schools were no longer just places to pass on knowledge. They became incubators for a generation that would one day lead humanity among the stars. But perhaps the most remarkable change was cultural. The hardships of banishment and isolation had shaped a new kind of human spirit. Communities became tighter, neighbors helped each other more, and collaboration replaced competition. Art and storytelling flourished in ways that reminded people of their shared history and dreams. Music, literature, and theater all reflected a central theme. Humanity would not be forgotten, and humanity would endure. These cultural foundations became as important as technology, instilling pride and purpose in everyone who lived through those years. Despite all this growth and progress, humanity kept its efforts largely hidden from the galaxy. To outsiders, Earth seemed dormant, a world left behind. Patrols and scouts sent by other civilizations often found nothing but empty space or faint signals, cleverly disguised as natural phenomena. The galaxy continued with its own affairs, unaware that one of its most underestimated members was preparing for a future that would shake its foundations. This period of quiet development also allowed humanity to experiment without interference. New forms of propulsion, energy generation, and defense were tested in real conditions, not in simulations. This gave humans a level of experience that other civilizations lacked, as they had no one around to dictate limits or set standards. Every success was measured, refined, and multiplied. Every failure became a lesson that made the next attempt stronger. In the span of 2 decades, Earth had transformed from a planet considered backward into a hub of innovation, resource production, and military potential. Meanwhile, the Terran assembly never lost sight of the ultimate goal: to be respected, not pitied or ignored. Leaders emphasized strategic patience. They knew that confronting the galaxy too early could destroy everything they had built. Instead, they focused on preparation, ensuring that when the time came to reveal themselves, humanity would stand. Not as an outcast, but as a force capable of shaping events rather than reacting to them. By the end of the 2nd decade of exile, the galaxy's assumptions were no longer valid. Earth had become unrecognizable. Spaceports, once small and insufficient, now sprawled over thousands of kilometers. Fleets of research and cargo vessels orbited the planet, ready to explore, defend, or expand at a moment's notice. Mines and factories on Mars, the Moon, and the asteroid belt churned out resources at a speed that rivaled entire systems. Human ingenuity had turned every disadvantage into a strength, every limitation into an opportunity. The transformation was not just physical or technological. Humanity had learned patience, strategy, and unity. They had learned that survival depended not on immediate recognition, but on preparation, on being ready for the moment when they could reclaim their place. And they had learned to trust themselves. Not the Council, not distant allies, but their own intelligence, resilience, and determination. At this point, Earth was no longer just a planet. It had become a hidden powerhouse, a civilization operating in the shadows of the galaxy, yet quietly surpassing it in strength and potential. The galaxy might have thought it had won by banishing humanity, but in truth, the opposite had occurred. Exile had sparked a transformation so profound that no one, not even the Council itself, would ever look at Earth the same way again. And so, while the stars continued to spin above, and distant civilizations continued their wars and politics, Earth worked in silence. It built fleets that could cross solar systems, cities that could support millions on other planets, and technology that bent the rules of what was considered possible. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed, and cast out. Yet every year of silence, every hour of effort, every invention, and every lesson learned was a step toward the moment when Earth would no longer need permission to stand tall among the stars. The galaxy believed humanity was dormant, broken, or defeated. But in truth, Earth was awake, growing stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever before. And all of it had been forged from one simple truth: banishment was not the end. It was the beginning of something far greater. Years of silent preparation on Earth had finally reached a point where humanity was ready to reappear before the galaxy. For decades, other civilizations had believed that Earth was no longer a serious player in galactic affairs. Observers reported little activity, and traders assumed the human homeworld had retreated into isolation, perhaps permanently. But the Terran assembly had been patient. Every factory, shipyard, and research station had been carefully calibrated to produce not just survival tools, but the foundation of something far greater. Now, it was time for the first step of humanity's return. The first human ships that re-entered the wider galaxy were unlike anything that had ever been seen. They were sleek, dark, and angular, built not to mimic the designs of other civilizations, but to define a style that was unmistakably human. The ships were equipped with engines far more efficient than anything in the Council's fleets, and advanced stealth systems allowed them to move undetected through space. Humanity was no longer the scattered, divided planet the galaxy had once dismissed. It had become a single, unified force, confident and prepared. The first mission was simple in its purpose, but monumental in its meaning. A single Terran battlecruiser approached a neutral sector near the outer edge of Council-controlled space. The captain transmitted a message to every listening system. Earth does not seek permission anymore. We seek respect. The words were short, almost casual, but they carried a weight the galaxy was not ready for. Many leaders thought it was a bluff. They assumed that, after decades of exile, humanity had not changed. Some even laughed at the message, convinced that Earth's ambitions were no match for the older, more advanced civilizations. But the laughter would not last long. Within weeks, the first demonstrations of Earth's technological progress became impossible to ignore. Orbital foundries, massive structures built to construct ships in record time, began launching vessels that combined speed, firepower, and versatility in ways that other civilizations had only theorized. These ships could be assembled faster than any fleet the Council could produce, and they could operate autonomously if needed. Earth had built not just a fleet, but a system capable of sustaining continuous expansion. What startled the galaxy most was the approach of humanity to conflict and diplomacy. The Terran assembly was not aggressive for the sake of aggression. Human fleets did not patrol the edges of space to attack weaker civilizations. Instead, they focused on demonstrating capability, on showing that Earth would no longer be ignored or underestimated. When a small alien scouting team tried to approach human territory to investigate, they were met with precision maneuvers that neutralized their probes and forced their retreat without causing unnecessary destruction. Every action sent a clear message. Earth had changed, and it was no longer a planet to be dismissed. Inside Earth's control centers, the atmosphere was electric. Scientists, engineers, and strategists watched the reports in real time. Every test of technology in the silent years had paid off. Ships moved like living organisms, communicating and coordinating at speeds far beyond what had been imagined possible. Artificial intelligence had been integrated into human command structures, not to replace human decision-making, but to enhance it, allowing fleets to act with coordination that rivaled the instincts of a single commander. The first public encounter with a Council fleet was unforgettable. A small fleet sent to test humanity's defenses appeared near the outer perimeter of Sol system space. They expected an easy patrol, perhaps a show of force, but what they encountered was shocking. Human ships moved with flawless coordination, creating formations that minimized exposure while maximizing firepower. Shields and weapons were optimized in ways the Council had never seen. Their advance was met not with chaotic battle, but with controlled, decisive response. The human fleet did not seek destruction. It sought acknowledgement. And it got it. Council leaders quickly realized that humanity had not merely rebuilt itself. It had evolved. While other civilizations had relied on slow bureaucratic development, Earth had used exile as an opportunity to refine its strengths and eliminate its weaknesses. Every technological innovation, every strategy tested, had been focused on one goal: survival and sovereignty. The galaxy now faced a species that was no longer vulnerable, no longer dependent, and no longer willing to compromise its freedom. Beyond technology, humanity's return revealed another critical factor: spirit. Across Earth and its colonies, people had been trained to act with confidence and clarity. They understood that their place in the galaxy was not given, it was earned. Diplomats spoke with authority, commanders acted decisively, and scientists continued to push boundaries, all under the understanding that their work was not just for survival, but for asserting humanity's rightful place among the stars. First confrontation with a minor alien nation sealed the impression. A civilization attempting to assert authority over human space sent a fleet of inspection vessels. They expected compliance, perhaps even surrender. What they encountered instead was strategy and precision. Human ships did not blindly engage. They used advanced surveillance, careful positioning, and overwhelming presence to neutralize threats without unnecessary loss of life. When the transmissions reached the Council, they showed a species fully prepared to defend itself and its people. The message was clear: humanity would not tolerate interference, and it would not accept marginalization. Observers across the galaxy began to take note. Traders, explorers, and diplomats whispered of Earth's resurgence. What had once been considered a minor struggling planet was now a hub of innovation and coordination. Other civilizations, many of whom had once looked down upon humanity, started reassessing their assumptions. Perhaps exile had not weakened Earth, it had sharpened it. Perhaps the galaxy had misjudged one of its most adaptable and determined species, the Terran. Assembly understood the importance of timing. They did not reveal all their capabilities at once. Instead, they showcased technology and strategy carefully, gradually increasing the scale of their presence. Every demonstration built credibility and respect. Every engagement, even minor, reminded the galaxy that humans were capable of far more than had been imagined. And as Earth quietly extended its influence, other civilizations began to approach, not with hostility, but with curiosity and cautious respect. For those watching from within Earth's control centers, their return was a mix of triumph and vigilance. People celebrated their achievements, but they also knew the stakes. The galaxy could still react unpredictably. Some civilizations might seek to challenge Earth, to test whether these advancements were real or a bluff. Every fleet, every colony, every strategy was designed not only to show strength, but to prepare for the challenges ahead. Humanity had learned that visibility was a powerful tool, but readiness was essential. By the end of this first phase, humanity had accomplished something remarkable. It had emerged from decades of isolation, not as a broken exile, but as a force capable of asserting itself confidently across the stars. The galaxy had assumed that silence meant weakness. Humanity had proven the opposite, that patience, preparation, and unity could create a power that no one could ignore. The Terran Assembly's message was simple but unforgettable. Earth no longer sought permission. It sought respect. And for the first time in galactic history, a civilization that had been cast out returned not to beg for inclusion, but to define its own place, on its own terms. As human ships moved through the outer sectors, every new star system they approached became a testament to their perseverance. Every encounter with other civilizations reinforced a single truth: humanity had changed, and the galaxy would never view Earth the same way again. In those quiet years of preparation, a force had been forged, a force born not from conquest, but from necessity, ingenuity, and the unyielding human spirit. The first reveal was just the beginning. Humanity had emerged from the shadows, ready to reclaim its place among the stars. The galaxy had believed exile would weaken them, but it had done the opposite. Earth was no longer a planet to be overlooked. It was a symbol of what could be, achieved through unity, patience, and relentless determination. And as human fleets continued to move outward, the message spread. Humanity had returned, not to ask for permission, but to show the galaxy that it was a force to be reckoned with. The first encounters with the galaxy beyond the solar system had already sent ripples of surprise through other civilizations. But what came next would leave them in disbelief. Humanity had quietly rebuilt itself, emerging not as a broken exile, but as a civilization with unmatched coordination and ingenuity. The Terran Assembly understood that visibility alone would not guarantee respect. The galaxy needed to see proof, tangible, undeniable proof, that humanity was no longer to be underestimated. It began with a small incident, almost routine from the perspective of the other civilizations. A minor alien nation, curious about the sudden activity near the edge of Terran space, sent a fleet of scouting vessels. Their mission was simple: inspect human operations, ensure no dangerous technology was being developed, and report back to the Council. What they expected, perhaps, was a few armed guards, some clever camouflage, and a polite refusal. What they encountered instead was a display of human capability that none could have predicted. The alien ships approached cautiously, confident in their numbers and training. But as they entered human-monitored space, the Terran fleet responded with precision that seemed almost effortless. Humans did not panic, nor did they attack indiscriminately. Instead, their ships moved with uncanny coordination, surrounding the intruders, cutting off escape routes, and neutralizing their surveillance systems. Every maneuver was calculated, every action intentional. The fleet's strength was overwhelming, but its discipline prevented unnecessary destruction. The alien commanders were stunned. Their scanners could detect advanced shields, energy manipulation, systems and weaponry that seemed to anticipate movement before it happened. Some of their own officers began to whisper that humanity had not just rebuilt its technology, it had redefined the rules of space warfare. It was not brute force that had secured humanity's edge, but intelligence, strategy, and unity. Each human ship acted not just as a weapon, but as part of a larger mind, coordinated across vast distances in a way that made the alien fleet feel disorganized, slow, and vulnerable. This first engagement was enough to shake confidence across the galaxy. Reports reached the Council, and every leader began reassessing their assumptions. The species they had dismissed, mocked, and cast out had quietly grown into a power capable of challenging even the oldest empires. Some dismissed the incident as a minor skirmish blown out of proportion, but others were more cautious. They began sending observers to watch the movements of the Terran Assembly, to try to understand how a planet that had once struggled for survival could now project such control and capability. Humanity, however, did not seek to provoke war. The Terran Assembly understood the danger of overextension. They were careful not to act in ways that could be interpreted as outright aggression. Every engagement, every demonstration of power was designed to communicate a single idea: humans are capable, organized, and not to be underestimated. The alien fleet that had tested them was not destroyed. It was neutralized, blocked, and then carefully escorted out of Terran space. Humanity showed that it could defend itself, but it also demonstrated that it could exercise restraint, a quality the galaxy had not expected from a species it had once labeled aggressive and chaotic. Within Earth and its colonies, the response to this first conflict was electric. Engineers analyzed every movement of the fleet, finding areas for improvement while celebrating the flawless execution of strategy. Scientists monitored every system, refining energy grids, propulsion, and defense mechanisms. Strategists reviewed The engagement, noting how coordination had worked and how communication had been maintained across multiple ships simultaneously. Every human involved understood the significance. The galaxy was watching, and this was only the beginning. Meanwhile, the Council scrambled to respond. They convened emergency meetings, discussing how to address what they now referred to as the human resurgence. Leaders argued over whether to impose sanctions, send fleets, or attempt diplomacy. Yet all of them were aware of one undeniable fact. Humanity had changed. Exile had not broken them. It had made them stronger, faster, smarter, and more organized. And anyone had imagined. The Terran Assembly continued its careful expansion. Colonies that had been quietly developed during decades of isolation now became hubs of production, research, and training. Each world contributed to the growing influence of Earth, whether through resources, personnel, or technological innovation. Fleet production increased, but always with strategy and purpose. Humans did not build blindly. They built with foresight, understanding that their next encounter with the galaxy would be decisive. Trade networks, too, were carefully established. Other civilizations, initially skeptical, began to approach Earth for cooperation, realizing that aligning with humanity might offer advantages. But the Terran Assembly did not rush into alliances. Every agreement was evaluated for fairness and security. Humans had learned through exile that trust must be earned, not demanded. Those who sought partnerships found Earth generous and reliable, while those who attempted deception quickly discovered the consequences of underestimating humanity. The first real test of human strategy came when another alien fleet, larger and more experienced, moved to challenge Earth's territorial presence near an unclaimed star system. Unlike the minor skirmish, this confrontation demanded full coordination and a demonstration of the Terran Assembly's ability to act decisively under pressure. Humans prepared meticulously. Ships were positioned with precision, resource systems optimized, and AI-assisted coordination ensured that every vessel could react instantly to new threats. When the fleet arrived, they found the humans waiting, calm, prepared, and fully capable. Advanced sensors detected every movement of the alien fleet, while countermeasures disabled their attempts to gather intelligence. Energy shields and defensive arrays absorbed attacks, while human ships maneuvered to block any advance. It was a display not of reckless power, but of disciplined, controlled superiority. The aliens quickly realized that brute force alone would not succeed. Every attempt to penetrate human defenses was met with coordinated response, precision targeting, and tactical retreats that maintained the integrity of the fleet. The engagement ended without catastrophic destruction. Yet the result was clear. Humanity had proven its capability beyond question. The galaxy could no longer dismiss Earth as a weak, isolated planet. Humans had transformed their exile into an opportunity to learn, adapt, and prepare. Every move, every decision, every technological advancement was a reminder that this species had grown far beyond what anyone had predicted. Within Earth, celebrations were quiet but profound. The people understood the magnitude of what had been achieved. They had faced potential disaster and turned it into opportunity. They had shown restraint where others might have chosen aggression. And above all, they had demonstrated that humanity could act as one, a single, coordinated force capable of facing challenges that had once seemed insurmountable. The wider galaxy began to notice. Stories of human efficiency, strategy, and technological mastery spread quickly. Other civilizations, even those once hostile, began to reassess their positions. Some sought contact, hoping to negotiate or learn from humans. Others grew wary, realizing that Earth might soon emerge as a central power, reshaping alliances, trade routes, and the balance of influence. Through all of this, the Terran Assembly maintained a consistent message. Humanity did not seek conquest for its own sake. It did not seek to dominate the galaxy. Instead, it sought recognition, respect, and the ability to exist freely without interference. Every demonstration of power, every engagement, was a reminder that humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. Their strength lay not only in technology, but in unity, preparation, and the resolve forged through decades of exile. By the end of this phase, it was clear that the first conflict had done more than test Earth's capabilities. It had signaled the turning point. The galaxy now understood that humans were not only survivors, but innovators, strategists, and leaders. The lessons learned during decades of preparation had transformed exile into a strength. The galaxy had assumed weakness. Humanity had proven power. From this moment, Earth began to move with confidence, carefully expanding its influence while maintaining control over its growing territories. The lessons of restraint, coordination, and preparation would guide future engagements. Every colony, every fleet, every new alliance was a part of a larger vision, the establishment of a human presence that could not be ignored, dismissed, or controlled by others. And as human ships continued to patrol their sectors, as colonies grew in size and sophistication, and as the galaxy slowly adjusted to the reality of a transformed Earth, one thing became undeniable. Humanity had returned, not just to exist, but to define its place in the universe, proving that exile had been a beginning, not an end. Years had passed since humanity first revealed itself to the galaxy. The initial shock of their return had settled, and civilizations across the stars began to take note. Earth was no longer a planet to be ignored. The Terran assembly had proven, through precise strategy and advanced technology, that humanity was capable of defending itself, responding to threats, and acting with remarkable unity. Yet the assembly knew that demonstration alone would not secure humanity's place among the stars. It was time to move from preparation and defense to expansion and leadership. The first step was the consolidation of Terran space. Colonies on Mars, the Moon, and the asteroid belt were integrated into a cohesive network, fully capable of supporting long-term human expansion. Every settlement was connected by a web of communication, transport, and supply systems, ensuring that no planet, station, or facility operated in isolation. These colonies were not simply extensions of Earth. They were strategic hubs, carefully placed to maximize resources, energy efficiency, and defense. As the network expanded, human engineers developed new propulsion systems that allowed ships to move between colonies and star systems faster than ever. These engines were not only more efficient, but also more reliable, ensuring that fleets could respond to threats or opportunities without delay. At the same time, humans invested in energy systems that made long-term operations sustainable. Every world, every ship, every facility was designed with longevity and adaptability in mind. With these foundations in place, the Terran assembly began to extend its influence to unclaimed star systems. These worlds, often barren or underdeveloped, were transformed through terraforming, mining, and construction projects into thriving centers of life, industry, and research. Planets that had once been overlooked became vibrant examples of human ingenuity and determination. Agriculture, cities, and infrastructure were built with precision, efficiency, and foresight, creating a living network of worlds capable of sustaining humanity's growth. It was not just technology and strategy that marked humanity's rise. The Terran assembly understood the importance of reputation and influence. They extended diplomacy carefully, inviting smaller civilizations to join voluntary partnerships. Unlike the Council, which often relied on rules, treaties, and bureaucracy, humans offered results. They promised protection, stability, and growth. Civilizations that chose to cooperate with Earth quickly found that the benefits were tangible. Trade networks expanded, security improved, and shared technologies elevated their standard of living. Many civilizations began to prefer human leadership over the Council's slow, often indecisive management. Earth had proven that it could act quickly, solve problems effectively, and deliver results. Its combination of discipline, intelligence, and vision created a new form of authority, not imposed through fear, but earned through competence. The Terran Assembly became the center of a growing network of aligned civilizations, each contributing resources, knowledge, and loyalty to a system that prioritized efficiency and fairness. Meanwhile, Earth continued to strengthen its fleet. Ships of every size and purpose were constructed, from swift reconnaissance vessels to heavily armed battle cruisers. Each ship was designed not just for combat, but for versatility. Fleets could adapt to multiple roles, whether exploration, defense, or logistical support. Every new vessel incorporated lessons learned from previous encounters with other civilizations, ensuring that humanity's capabilities were continually improving. Humanity's rise also relied on training and education. Citizens of Earth and its colonies were taught not only science and technology, but also leadership, strategy, and diplomacy. Young people learned how to think critically, work in teams, and make decisions under pressure. They were prepared not just to operate ships or run colonies, but to lead entire systems of civilization. The human spirit, shaped by decades of exile and hardship, became a driving force behind innovation and progress. The turning point came when Earth's fleets and colonies were fully prepared to engage with larger civilizations. Humans no longer hid their capabilities. They demonstrated them openly. Trade routes were secured, unexplored regions were mapped, and smaller civilizations were invited to join the Terran network. The galaxy began to recognize a pattern. Wherever humanity appeared, stability, innovation, and growth followed. Other civilizations, even those once skeptical or hostile, started seeking partnerships. They realized that aligning with humanity offered opportunities for protection, advancement, and access to technology. The Terran Assembly welcomed these alliances selectively, ensuring that cooperation was mutual and that no partner could dominate the relationship. Through careful management, Earth transformed from a single planet into the center of a growing empire, not imposed through fear, but built through competence, trust, and shared prosperity. Humanity's rise also had a cultural impact. The shared experience of exile, preparation, and achievement created a sense of identity and pride. Citizens understood that they were part of something larger than themselves, a civilization that had been underestimated, dismissed, and yet had emerged stronger than any other. This pride was reflected in art, music, literature, and public discourse, all emphasizing human resilience, creativity, and unity. Cultural strength became as important as technological and military power, fostering loyalty and cooperation across planets and generations. The galaxy began to see Earth not as a rebellious outcast, but as a model of organization, innovation, and leadership. Civilizations that once scoffed at humanity's potential now sought guidance or partnership. The Terran Assembly maintained a careful balance, expanding influence while preserving autonomy. Humans did not impose their will. They offered results, protection, and progress. This approach attracted allies and discouraged aggression, allowing Earth to consolidate power without unnecessary conflict. By this time, Earth's empire stretched across multiple star systems, each colony integrated into a network capable of sustaining long-term growth and defense. The fleet had grown to unprecedented size and capability, capable of protecting Terran space while supporting trade, exploration, and scientific discovery. Every engagement with other civilizations reinforced humanity's reputation as a capable and fair leader. The rise of the Terran Empire was not marked by violence or conquest, but by vision, organization, and preparation. Humans had taken what was once a disadvantage, exile from the Council, and turned it into the foundation of strength. Every lesson learned during decades of preparation had been applied to build a system that was resilient, adaptable, and capable of sustained growth. The galaxy could no longer ignore humanity. Small civilizations looked to Earth for guidance. Medium-sized civilizations sought partnership, and even the Council had to reconsider its assumptions. Humans had proven that exile had not broken them. It had refined them. The Terran Assembly had created an empire based not on fear, but on competence, unity, and the ability to deliver results that others could not match. Through careful planning, disciplined execution, and shared vision, humanity had achieved something remarkable. A species once dismissed as chaotic and weak had become a force capable of shaping galactic affairs. The rise of the Terran Empire was a testament to the resilience, intelligence, and determination of humans, showing that exile, hardship, and dismissal could be transformed into a foundation for strength, leadership, and influence. As the Terran fleets moved through space, as colonies flourished, and as new alliances formed, one truth became undeniable. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a civilization that had mastered preparation, unity, and strategy. It was an empire built not on conquest, but on competence, trust, and the shared vision of an entire species determined to claim its place among the stars. After decades of preparation, transformation, and careful expansion, humanity had finally reached the point where the galaxy could no longer ignore it. The Terran Empire now spanned multiple star systems, each colony thriving, each fleet ready, and every human citizen aware of the remarkable journey that had brought them here. Earth was no longer a planet struggling for recognition. It was a civilization that had proven its strength, unity, and ingenuity beyond any doubt. The moment of truth came when the Galactic Council extended an invitation, or perhaps a request, for humanity to return. It was a gesture meant to restore order, a chance for Earth to rejoin the ranks of established civilizations under the rules the Council controlled. To many leaders across the stars, this seemed like the final opportunity to assert dominance, to bring humanity back into the fold and remind it of its place. But the Terran Assembly understood something that no one else had realized for decades. Humanity did not need permission, recognition, or validation from anyone. When the human delegation arrived at the Council, the grand chambers were filled with representatives from countless civilizations. Many of them remembered the days when Earth had been dismissed, when its inhabitants had been seen as chaotic, weak, and unworthy. They expected humility, perhaps even apologies. Instead, they found a delegation composed of confident leaders, strategists, and thinkers, representatives of a civilization that had grown stronger, wiser, and more capable than most in the galaxy could imagine. The Terran ambassador spoke clearly, calmly, and with a presence that commanded attention. "We were once part of your council. You cast us out. You assumed we would fade into insignificance. We did not. We have built not only fleets, cities, and colonies, but a civilization that is capable of defining its own destiny. We do not seek permission. We seek acknowledgement as equals, nothing more, nothing less." The chamber fell silent. The message was simple, yet profound. This was not arrogance. It was the truth. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed, and cast out, yet it had emerged as a civilization capable of shaping galactic affairs. It had turned exile into opportunity, isolation into preparation, and dismissal into determination. No species could now question Earth's capabilities, its vision, or its right to stand among the stars as an equal dot. As the Council debated how to respond, they were forced to consider the reality of the situation. Human fleets were deployed not as a threat, but as a demonstration of preparedness. They were positioned strategically in nearby star systems, capable of responding to any act of aggression. Human colonies across multiple planets were fully self-sufficient, technologically, advanced, and ready to defend themselves if challenged. Every calculation, every analysis, every previous engagement in space had been designed to reach this moment, to show that humanity had transformed from an outcast into a force of consequence. Observers from other civilizations began to realize that the Terran Empire was different from anything they had seen. It was not built on fear, coercion, or domination. It was built on competence, unity, and vision. The technology was advanced, but it was the human spirit, the resilience, adaptability, and determination forged over decades of exile that made the Empire truly formidable. Every system, every fleet, every colony reflected a civilization that had learned from its hardships and had used those lessons to thrive. Some council members attempted to challenge the humans, arguing that they must submit to the rules of the old order. But the response was measured and precise. Human fleets were ready to defend themselves, but they did not attack preemptively. Diplomats explained clearly that Earth had no intention of conquest. Their goal was equality, recognition, and the freedom to continue building their civilization without interference. Every word, every action, every fleet movement reinforced the undeniable truth. Humanity could not be ignored. Meanwhile, across the Terran Empire, citizens watched and participated in this moment with a deep sense of pride. They had lived through decades of preparation, learning, and growth. They had experienced the challenges of exile, the difficulties of unifying multiple planets, and the long, patient work of building technology, fleets, and systems. And now, the galaxy was witnessing the result. Humanity had proven that exile was not the end, but the beginning of something greater. The Council, for its part, began to realize that attempts to dominate or dismiss Earth would no longer succeed. Humans had not only built power, they had built influence, trust, and stability. Civilizations that had once been skeptical were now voluntarily aligning with Earth, seeking protection, trade, and collaboration. The galaxy had begun to shift. Old alliances were reconsidered, and new partnerships formed under the growing influence of the Terran Empire. The Terran ambassador concluded with a simple, unwavering message. We do not seek to replace you. We do not seek to dominate you. We seek only to exist as equals, to contribute to the galaxy, and to protect ourselves and those who choose to align with us. Our place is ours to claim, built through effort, innovation, and perseverance. We ask only that you recognize it. The words were met with silence, then murmurs, and eventually acceptance. It was not an immediate embrace, but it was recognition. For the first time in centuries, humanity stood not as a minor player or an exiled species, but as a civilization whose presence, capabilities, and vision could not be ignored. The galaxy had learned, sometimes the hard way, that humans were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. The Terran Empire continued to grow after this moment. Colonies expanded to new star systems, fleets patrolled and protected trade routes, and smaller civilizations continued to join voluntarily, recognizing the efficiency, fairness, and opportunity that came with alliance. Humanity had not sought revenge, but it had claimed its rightful place among the stars. The lessons of exile, patience, preparation, and unity had become the foundation of its strength. Across Earth and its colonies, people celebrated quietly. They did not seek conquest or domination, only the knowledge that their hard work, resilience, and determination had brought them to a point where the galaxy could no longer dismiss them. They had proven that adversity could be transformed into opportunity, that patience and strategy could overcome dismissal, and that unity and vision could create a civilization capable of thriving in the most challenging environment imaginable. The story of humanity's rise spread quickly. Across the galaxy, other civilizations told stories of the species that had once been considered weak and chaotic, cast out from the council, and yet had risen to become one of the most capable and respected powers in the stars. Humans had shown that exile was not a curse, but a chance to grow stronger, to learn, and to prepare for the moment when the galaxy could finally see them for what they were. And so, humanity continued, not as a species seeking approval, but as one defining its own destiny. Fleets moved through the stars, colonies grew into thriving worlds, and new alliances formed based on mutual respect and cooperation. The Terran Empire had become a model of what could be achieved through perseverance, ingenuity, and shared purpose. The galaxy had once dismissed Earth, but now it had learned an undeniable truth. Humans could not be ignored, underestimated, or contained. The final lesson of this journey was clear. Exile and dismissal had not been the end of humanity. They had been the beginning. The years of preparation, the careful expansion, the demonstration of power and restraint, and the creation of a civilization capable of standing on its own had all led to this moment. Humanity had proven that it could rise from adversity, overcome every challenge, and claim its place among the stars, not by asking for permission, but by building a future strong enough that the galaxy had no choice but to recognize it. And as human fleets moved through the galaxy, as colonies thrived, and new civilizations aligned voluntarily with the Terran Empire, one fact became undeniable. Humanity had returned, not to beg for recognition, not to seek permission, but to stand, tall as equals, a force of resilience, intelligence, and unity, shaping the galaxy on its own terms.